You cannot
Stop!
deny the
The
truth, my
Wolf
lady.
King
The
interrupted the
Northern Lords
ceremony
are
when he saw
preparing
the
for
quiet
war,
girl
and we must
crying in the
act
corner.
now or face
The
ruin.
air smelled of burning incense and the faint scent of roses. Nobles in silk and velvet whispered quietly among themselves, their voices carrying the weight of centuries-old alliances. At the center of it all, beneath a towering arch of silver and black, the Wolf King himself stood, his presence demanding silence. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and silent, like a shadow that had taken human form. His eyes, the color of storm clouds, scanned the hall with careful precision. Everyone knew not to meet his gaze for too long. He could see the truth behind any mask. Tonight, the Wolf King was here to witness the ceremony that bound noble families to his kingdom. It was a ritual that had been carried out for generations, meant to show loyalty, power, and unity. In a quiet corner, far from the glittering lights and the eager eyes of the court, a girl sat alone. She was small, almost fragile, dressed in soft, pale fabric that seemed to absorb the shadows around her. Her hair fell in waves over her shoulders, and her hands trembled slightly as she clutched them together. No one seemed to notice her. No one cared. Her name was Lyra. She had come from a house that had lost its power and its lands long ago. Her family's name was spoken only in whispers now, as if saying it too loudly might invite misfortune. Lyra had learned to stay quiet, to fade into the corners, to avoid attention. But tonight, something inside her stirred, something she could not control. The ceremony began. Drums echoed through the hall, deep and rhythmic, shaking the stone floors beneath them. Nobles stepped forward one by one, bowing to the Wolf King and pledging their loyalty. The Wolf King remained still, his hands folded behind his back, his face unreadable. Lyra tried to focus on the music, on the rhythm, on anything but the weight of the room. But the whispers of nobles, the gleam of gold, the pressure of eyes she did not know how to meet, all of it became too much. A single tear slipped down her cheek, then another. She wiped them quickly, but more fell. Her shoulders shook with quiet sobs. No one noticed at first. They were too busy bowing, smiling, and exchanging glances. But then he saw her. The Wolf King's eyes narrowed, storm clouds gathering in his gaze. The ceremony faltered, the music stuttering as he took a single, purposeful step toward her. Whispers filled the hall. Who dares cry during the ceremony? The nobles froze, shocked that their king had noticed a lowly girl in the corner. "Stop," he said. His voice was calm, but it carried the weight of command that silenced every whisper. "Do not continue until this girl is tended to." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Nobles shifted uneasily. To interrupt a sacred ceremony was unheard of, and yet no one dared argue. The Wolf King's gaze was absolute. It drew all eyes to the corner where Lyra sat, trembling and ashamed. Lyra's heart raced. She wanted to hide, to sink into the shadows, to disappear entirely, but she could not move. The Wolf King knelt slightly, lowering himself to her level, his stormy eyes softer than anyone in the hall had ever seen. "Why do you cry?" he asked, his voice quiet now, meant only for her. Lyra blinked, startled. No one had ever spoken to her like that, not a noble, not a servant, not even a teacher when she was a child. Words stuck in her throat. She could not answer. She only shook her head, ashamed that she could not stop herself from crying. The Wolf King reached out his hand, not in threat but in an offer. His fingers were long, strong, and careful. "Come with me," he said. Lyra hesitated. Every instinct told her to run, to hide, to vanish into the shadows. But something in his voice, something ancient and deep, made her step forward. She allowed him to take her hand, and together they walked away from the eyes of the court, away from the glittering masks and whispered judgments. They passed through long corridors, torchlight casting dancing shadows on the walls. Lyra's breath was quick, her heart hammering in her chest. She had never been this close to the Wolf King before, had never felt the weight of his gaze following her every step. It was frightening, yet strangely comforting. Finally, they reached a small chamber at the edge of the castle. It was simple, far from the grandeur of the hall, with stone walls and a single window that looked out over the misty forests beyond. The Wolf King released her hand but remained close, watching her carefully. "Tell me your name," he said. "Lyra," she whispered. "Lyra," he repeated, testing the sound on his tongue. "You are far from home, yet you sit quietly in corners carrying a burden no one sees. Why?" Lyra's lips trembled. She wanted to explain, to tell him about her family, the losses she had endured, the nights spent alone and afraid. But the words stuck. She only shook her head. He studied her for a long moment, and then, quietly, he said, "Sometimes the world is cruel to those who are quiet, but sometimes the quiet ones carry the greatest strength. Do you understand what I mean?" Lyra's tears continued to fall, but now they were softer, less of fear and more of relief. No one had ever spoken to her like this. No one had ever seen her. The Wolf King turned to the window. The forest beyond was cloaked in silver moonlight, mist curling between the trees. "This kingdom has many rules," he said, "many who will not understand you, but if you stay close to me, you will be protected. There are dangers that even you cannot see yet. Do you trust me?" Lyra hesitated. Trust was a fragile thing for her. She had learned long ago that trusting others often led to pain. And yet, in the depth of his stormy eyes, she felt something she had never felt before: safety, understanding, a strange kinship. I will try," she said softly. He nodded once as if that were enough. Then, unexpectedly, he reached out and gently brushed a tear from her cheek. The touch was brief, but it sent a shiver through her. The Wolf King seemed to notice the effect he had on her, and for the first time a small, almost imperceptible smile touched his lips. Outside the chamber, the hall was still in stunned silence. The nobles murmured among themselves, unsure whether to continue the ceremony or to flee. Some wondered if the Wolf King had lost his mind, but he had not. He had simply seen what no one else had: the quiet girl crying in the corner, carrying her secret sorrow, and he had chosen to act. Lyra sat on a simple wooden chair, her hands folded in her lap, trying to steady her breathing. The Wolf King leaned against the wall, watching her without speaking. There was an unspoken understanding between them, a connection forged in silence and sorrow. "You are not alone," he said finally, "and I will not allow anyone to harm you, not here, not in this kingdom." Lyra nodded, feeling warmth rise in her chest, a strange comfort she had not known in years. For the first time she felt seen. For the first time she felt safe. And yet, deep in the shadows beyond the window, something moved. A flicker of dark light, barely noticeable, as if the castle itself had whispered a warning. The Wolf King's eyes flickered to the corner of the room. He sensed it, something that did not belong, something tied to Lyra's tears and the quiet sorrow she carried. He did not speak of it, not yet, but in that moment both of them understood that the world outside the castle walls was not yet ready to accept the bond forming between them. There were secrets, dangers, and curses that lingered in the air, unseen, waiting. Lyra's heart beat rapidly as she looked at him. There was something fierce in his eyes, a power she could feel even without knowing its name. And yet, there was also a loneliness, a sadness that mirrored her own. She realized with a start that perhaps he too carried burdens no one else could see. "You will teach me," she whispered, almost to herself. "Teach you?" he asked, tilting his head. "How to be strong," she said, her voice trembling. "Even when no one notices you. Even when the world hurts you." He studied her carefully. For a long moment the silence stretched between them, filled with unspoken questions, shared fears, and the fragile beginnings of trust. "Perhaps," he said at last, "perhaps I can." Outside the candles flickered, casting long shadows across the hall. The ceremony had paused, the nobles uncertain what would happen next. But inside the small chamber, two souls, one quiet, one storm-like, had found each other, if only for a brief, fragile moment. And in the corner of the room, beyond the light and shadows, a secret waited. A secret that promised danger, mystery, and the stirring of powers neither of them fully understood. Lyra did not know what lay ahead, and the Wolf King did not speak of it. Yet both felt it, an unspoken truth that would change the course of their lives forever. The quiet girl had been seen, and the Wolf King had acted, but the world outside the chamber was restless, and for all their new understanding, the question lingered in the air. Who else had been watching? And what would they do when the shadows moved? The moon hung low in the sky, casting a pale silver light over the castle and the dense forest that surrounded it. Mist curled between the trees like ghostly fingers, and the wind whispered through the branches, carrying secrets from far away. The Wolf King led Lyra through the castle's hidden corridors, corridors that few had ever seen, corridors that smelled of cold stone, old magic, and distant fires. "You must stay close," he said softly, though his voice carried an unshakable authority. "There are dangers in this castle and beyond it, things that are invisible but very real." Lyra nodded, her hands trembling slightly as she followed him. Every step she took made her feel more alive and more afraid at the same time. She had never been anywhere like this. The castle's walls seemed to hum with energy, as if they themselves were alive, watching, judging. Why are you helping me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I am nothing. I am just a girl who cries in corners." The Wolf King stopped, his storm-colored eyes fixed on her, steady and unwavering. "You are not nothing, Lyra. You are stronger than you know, and you are not safe if I leave you alone. I see the pain in your heart and I cannot ignore it." Lyra swallowed hard. No one had ever looked at her this way, not her teachers, not the nobles, not even her family when she was a child. There was something in his gaze that cut through the fear and loneliness she had carried all her life, something that felt like home, though she had never known it. They reached a chamber high in the fortress, a room with tall windows that overlooked the forest below. Moonlight spilled in, illuminating the dust motes that floated in the air. The room was empty except for 2 chairs and a small wooden table, but it felt safe, as if the walls themselves promised protection. "Sit," the Wolf King said, gesturing to one of the chairs. Lyra obeyed, her eyes wide as she took in the room. He remained standing, a shadow against the moonlight, and spoke again. "Lyra, you must understand something. I am bound by a curse. It has been with me since before you were born. It is not just a story or a legend. It is real, and it is dangerous." Lyra's brow furrowed. "A curse," she repeated. "What kind of curse?" He sighed, a sound like wind through dead trees. "I am tied to a wolf spirit, a force that demands loyalty, obedience, and sometimes violence. It is not part of me entirely, but it lives in me. I fight it constantly. I control it sometimes, but there are nights when it awakens, and I am not certain who I will be." Lyra's heart skipped a beat. She thought she had felt fear before, but this was different. Yet beneath the fear, there was something else, curiosity, and a strange, quiet connection. She understood something, deep inside, that he was not merely a king or a ruler. He was a prisoner of his own power, fighting against a part of himself he could not entirely control. Do you hurt people?" she asked cautiously, her voice barely above a whisper. The Wolf King's eyes darkened for a moment and then softened. "Not if I can help it, but the curse is old and it is patient. It waits for moments of weakness. It will take what it wants unless I am vigilant." Lyra felt a chill run through her. Yet strangely, she did not want to run away. She wanted to understand him. She wanted to help, though she did not know how. "You are not alone," he said again, almost as if reading her thoughts. "And you are not like the others. You feel things deeply. That can be a strength, Lyra, if you learn to control it." Her hands clenched in her lap. "I don't know how to control anything," she admitted. "Even my tears, I can't stop them." The Wolf King studied her, then nodded slowly. "Perhaps you will learn, and perhaps you will teach me something in return." The wind howled outside the windows, shaking the panes. Shadows from the trees crept into the room like living fingers. Lyra shivered. "Do you fear the forest?" the Wolf King asked, his voice softer now, more human than commanding. Lyra looked toward the moonlit trees. I am not afraid of it, but I feel it watching me, always watching." He smiled faintly, almost like a shadow of warmth. "It is alive. It remembers the old magic. It will know who you are even before you do." For a moment they sat in silence, listening to the wind, the rustling leaves, and the distant cries of night creatures. There was a strange peace in it, a calm that seemed to belong only to them, far from the eyes of the court and the nobles who whispered and plotted. Then the Wolf King spoke again, his voice low, careful. "I must tell you something important, Lyra. There are those in this kingdom who do not wish you well. They see you as weak or dangerous. They do not understand you, and they will try to harm you if they can." Lyra's heart beat faster. "Why would they care about me?" "Because you are tied to a power they cannot see, a secret they do not understand. Your tears, your sorrow, it is not ordinary. There is a reason they flow, a reason you are drawn to this place, to me." Lyra's breath caught. She had never heard anyone speak of her like that. Never, her entire life, she had been invisible, ignored, and dismissed. And yet here he was, the Wolf King, telling her she was important, that she mattered. Can I help you?" she asked, almost afraid of the answer. He turned to her, his storm-colored eyes studying her carefully. "Perhaps. You may not know it yet, but your presence calms something in me that no one else can. Your sorrow, it resonates with the curse. If you are strong enough, it can help me control it." Lyra swallowed hard. She did not fully understand, but she felt a strange, trembling hope. She could be of use. She could matter. The Wolf King walked to the window and looked out over the mist-covered forest. "Tonight is dangerous," he said, his voice low. "The curse stirs when the moon is full. I cannot promise what will happen, but you must stay close. You must trust me." Lyra nodded, her hands trembling, her heart filled with both fear and anticipation. She did not know what trust meant fully, but she felt as if she were learning it, one heartbeat at a time. Hours passed. The wind whispered through the stone halls. The moon moved slowly across the sky. Lyra sat quietly, learning to breathe with the shadows, to listen to the rhythm of the castle and the forest beyond. The Wolf King remained near, a silent guardian, neither distant nor overwhelming. It was a strange, fragile balance, one she had never experienced before. Then a sound broke the quiet, a soft, almost imperceptible movement in the corridor beyond the chamber. The Wolf King stiffened, his body tensing like a wolf sensing prey. "Do not move," he whispered. His eyes glinted with sharp awareness, scanning the shadows. "Someone is here, someone watching." Lyra's heart leapt into her throat. She wanted to hide, to run, but she could not. She trusted him, and she knew in that instant that whatever came, he would protect her. The door creaked slightly, and a figure appeared in the shadows, a messenger, cloaked in black, with a letter clutched tightly in their hand. The Wolf King's eyes narrowed as the messenger bowed quickly, dropping the letter at his feet. He picked it up and read silently. Lyra watched, her breath held. His face darkened as he finished reading. "The kingdom is restless," he said finally, his voice tight. "Enemies move in the shadows, and they know about you. They know the connection between your sorrow and the curse. We must be careful. One misstep and everything changes." Lyra felt a shiver run down her spine. She did not fully understand the danger, but she understood its weight. She was no longer just a quiet girl in a corner. She was part of something larger, something old and powerful, something that demanded courage and strength she had never needed before. The Wolf King moved closer, placing a hand lightly on her shoulder. "You will not face this alone," he said. "Not now, not ever. Do you understand?" Lyra nodded, her hands tightening in her lap. I understand." The wind howled outside, carrying the scent of the forest and the weight of the night. In the quiet chamber under the silver moonlight, two souls, one marked by sorrow, one bound by a curse, found a fragile connection. A connection that would be tested, threatened, and stretched beyond anything they could imagine. and in the distance in the shadowed forest eyes watched. They were not human, they were patient. They were waiting. The Wolf King sensed it. He tightened his grip on the girl's shoulder, a silent promise. No matter what comes, we face it together. Lyra looked up at him, the moonlight catching the edges of his storm-colored eyes. For the first time, she felt a spark of something she had never felt before, hope. And perhaps, in time, something more. The night stretched on, the castle alive with hidden magic, secrets and whispers of what was to come. The quiet girl was no longer just a spectator in the Wolf King's world. She was part of its heart, its danger, and its mystery. And the first step of their journey had begun. The full moon rose high over the castle, casting silver light on the stone walls and the forest beyond. Its glow filtered through the windows of the Wolf King's chamber, spilling over the floor in long, pale beams. The wind carried the smell of pine and distant snow, and the trees whispered with secrets older than the kingdom itself. Tonight, the castle seemed alive, and not entirely in a friendly way. Lyra stood near the window, staring at the forest below. She could feel the tension in the air, the pull of something dangerous stirring in the shadows. Her hands trembled slightly, but she tried to steady them. She had never seen the Wolf King like this before, not fully aware of his own power, not fully in battle with the curse that bound him. He stood across the room, a dark silhouette against the moonlight. His eyes were storm-colored, fierce, and alive with a force that seemed larger than life. Tonight, the curse inside him was awake. She could feel it, like a ripple through the air, brushing against her like a cold wind. "You feel it too," he said softly, as if reading her thoughts. His voice was calm but carried a dangerous edge. "The curse, it is not sleeping tonight." Lyra nodded. She could feel her own heartbeat echoing in her chest, a strange rhythm that seemed to match his. She did not fully understand what was happening, but she knew she needed to stay close. The Wolf King moved closer, his steps silent on the stone floor. "Do not be afraid," he said, reaching out his hand. "I will not let it hurt you, but you must be brave. You must understand your sorrow, your tears, they are connected to it, more than you realize." Lyra swallowed hard. Her hands trembled as she lifted them, allowing him to take her fingers in his. The contact was warm and grounding, even as the air around them seemed charged with a cold, invisible force. "I don't know if I am brave," she whispered. "I am just afraid." "Afraid is not weakness," he replied, his voice gentle but firm. "Afraid is the beginning of courage. If you can face what terrifies you, then you can control what terrifies me." Lyra's breath caught. She wanted to run, to hide, to disappear into the shadows, but something in his words made her stay. She wanted to help him, to stand beside him, even if she did not fully understand the danger. Outside, the wind rose, whistling through the castle towers. Shadows moved along the walls, stretching like living creatures. Lyra shivered. She could feel the curse growing stronger, pressing against the Wolf King, tugging at him with invisible claws. He turned to her suddenly, his storm-colored eyes locking onto hers. "Tonight the curse will test me," he said. "And it will test you. You must not run. You must not hide, you must face it with me." Lyra nodded, though her heart pounded in her chest. I will try," she said. The Wolf King's expression softened. "That is all I ask, try." A distant howl echoed through the forest, low and mournful. Lyra's stomach tightened. She had never heard anything like it before. The sound seemed to carry power, ancient and deep, touching something buried within her own soul. "Do you hear that?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Yes," he replied. "The forest answers the moon. And the curse listens to both." He moved toward the door and gestured for her to follow. "We must leave the castle," he said. "The halls are not safe tonight, not when the curse is awake. Come." They stepped into the moonlit forest. The mist curled around their ankles like cold fingers, and the trees seemed to lean closer, their branches whispering secrets to one another. Lyra's heart raced, but she kept her gaze on the Wolf King, drawing courage from his steady presence. The deeper they moved into the forest, the stronger the energy became. Lyra could feel it in her chest, a strange resonance with the power that the Wolf King carried. It was frightening, but also thrilling. She realized with a start that she could feel the pull of the curse in her own way, as if her tears and her sorrow gave it shape and direction. "Do you feel it?" the Wolf King asked, his eyes scanning the shadows. "Do you feel how it stirs?" Lyra nodded. "Yes, it's like it knows me." He studied her carefully. "It does, and that is why you must be careful. One wrong step, one thought of fear, and it could overwhelm both of us." Lyra's hands trembled, but she straightened her shoulders. "I will not let it." The Wolf King gave a faint nod. "Good, then listen closely. Your tears, your sorrow, they are not just weakness, they are power. If you can focus them, you can calm the curse, even if only for a moment. Do you understand?" Lyra swallowed hard, trying to remember his words. I think I understand." "Good," he said. "Then hold on to that understanding and hold on to me." They moved together through the forest, their footsteps silent on the soft earth. The moonlight painted the mist silver, and shadows danced around them. Every rustle, every crack of a branch made Lyra's heart race, but she did not let go of his hand. Suddenly, the ground beneath them shook slightly, and the shadows in the forest seemed to shift, forming shapes that were not entirely natural. Lyra gasped. She had never seen anything like it. The Wolf King stepped in front of her, his body tense. "It is testing us," he said. "Stay close." A figure emerged from the mist, a wolf, enormous, with eyes like molten gold. Its fur shimmered in the moonlight, and its growl rumbled through the forest like thunder. Lyra's breath caught, but she stood still, holding onto the Wolf King's hand. The Wolf King did not move back. Instead, he stepped forward, his voice calm and steady. "It is me," he said. "I am the one it belongs to. You may not harm her." The wolf growled again, but did not move forward. It circled them, its gaze fixed on Lyra. She could feel its power, ancient and wild, pressing against her chest. And yet she felt something else, recognition, as if the creature sensed the same sorrow and longing she carried inside herself. "Lyra," the Wolf King said softly, "now focus. Your sorrow, your tears, let them reach me." Lyra closed her eyes and let herself feel everything. The fear, the loneliness, the pain she had carried all her life. Tears slipped down her cheeks, hot and urgent, and she let them flow freely. She imagined her sorrow reaching him, wrapping around him like a shield, calming the wild force inside him. The wolf paused, its growl lowering to a rumble. Lyra opened her eyes and saw the Wolf King's body relax slightly, his storm-colored eyes softer, calmer. The creature before them lowered its head, acknowledging her power, before disappearing into the mist with a silent, echoing howl. Lyra stumbled slightly, exhausted, and the Wolf King caught her. "You did well," he said, his voice low and full of admiration. "You have strength more than you know." She looked up at him, her chest heaving. I didn't know I could do that." He smiled faintly. "You can do many things, Lyra, things you have not yet discovered, and I will help you learn." For a long moment they stood together, the forest quiet once more, the mist curling gently around them. Lyra felt a strange sense of pride and also a deep connection to the Wolf King. They had faced the curse together, and neither had faltered. But the danger was not gone. In the distance, beyond the trees, shadows moved. Eyes watched. The forest whispered of enemies, of secrets, of magic older and darker than the castle itself. The Wolf King tightened his grip on her hand. "This was only the beginning," he said. "The curse will grow stronger and our enemies will grow bolder, but you are not alone. Not now, not ever." Lyra nodded, feeling a courage she had never known. "I will stay with you," she said firmly, "no matter what comes." He looked down at her, his eyes stormy and full of something she could not yet name, pride, admiration, perhaps even something closer to hope. "Then we face it together," he said. And together they began to walk back toward the castle, the mist curling around them like a protective veil. The moon followed, a silent witness to the bond forming between them. a bond forged in fear, sorrow, and courage, yet unbroken by the darkness surrounding them. But as they neared the castle gates, Lyra sensed a movement in the shadows. Not a wolf this time, but something older, watching, waiting, and patient. The journey was far from over. The curse, the enemies, and the secrets of the kingdom were still very much alive. And in that moment, Lyra understood that their struggle was only beginning. She looked up at the Wolf King. "I'm ready," she whispered. His storm-colored eyes softened. "So am I," he said. The forest seemed to sigh, the wind whispering through the trees. And the night waited, holding its breath for what was to come. The castle was quiet that night, but not peaceful. The wind howled through the towers, and the shadows seemed longer, darker, stretching into every corner of the stone walls. The full moon cast silver light over the highest tower, where the throne room lay, empty of ceremony, but heavy with a presence neither human nor entirely natural. Lyra stood near the window, the wind brushing her hair across her face. Her heart pounded in her chest, but she did not run. She had faced fear before in the forest with the Wolf King. She had learned a strange new strength, the courage to stand against the unknown. Tonight, that courage would be tested like never before. The Wolf King appeared beside her, silent, his storm-colored eyes fixed on the dark hall below. His presence was a mixture of power, danger, and a strange, quiet sorrow that mirrored her own. The curse had grown stronger, and he could feel it stirring inside him, clawing at the edges of his control. "We have no time to wait," he said, his voice low, calm, yet carrying the weight of command. "The curse will awaken fully tonight. If we do not face it now, it will destroy everything, the castle, the forest, and perhaps even us." Lyra swallowed hard. "I am ready," she said, her voice trembling but determined. I will help you." He studied her for a long moment and then nodded. "Good. Then follow me and do not falter. Your sorrow, your tears, they are our only hope." Together they descended the tower stairs, their footsteps silent on the stone. The castle itself seemed to shift around them, as if it were aware of the coming battle. Shadows lengthened, twisting in impossible ways, and whispers, faint and echoing, carried through the halls. At the throne room, the Wolf King stopped and looked at her. The doors were massive, carved with intricate wolf emblems that glowed faintly in the moonlight. He turned to Lyra. "This is where it will test us," he said. "Stand close to me, trust your heart." Lyra nodded. She did not know exactly what that meant, but she felt a strange certainty. She would not run. She would face this, and she would stand with him. The doors groaned as they opened, revealing a room bathed in silver light from the moon above. The throne sat empty, but the air was thick with power. A dark figure moved within the shadows, a monstrous shape, tall, wolf-like, eyes glowing like fire. It was the curse, fully awake, and it regarded them both with hunger and intelligence. The Wolf King stepped forward, placing himself between Lyra and the creature. "It is me," he said, his voice strong. "You belong to no one but me. Do not harm her." The creature growled, a sound that shook the stone walls. Its form was fluid, shifting between human and wolf, and Lyra could feel its power pressing against her chest, a force older and stronger than anything she had ever known. Lyra took a deep breath, remembering his words. Her sorrow, her tears, her pain. She let it rise from deep within her, feeling every moment of fear, every lonely night, every loss she had ever endured. She let it flow through her body, and into the Wolf King. The wolf creature paused, as if sensing the shift. Lyra's tears fell freely now, bright in the moonlight, and a strange warmth spread from her chest to the Wolf King, touching the wild, dark power inside him. The Wolf King closed his eyes, letting the sorrow reach him. It was not weakness, it was strength. His hands trembled slightly as he felt the curse respond, slowing, calming, as if recognizing the bond between them. The creature's growl softened, its massive form lowering slightly. Lyra took a cautious step forward. "You do not belong in fear," she whispered. "You do not belong in rage. You are part of us, part of him, and he will protect you." The Wolf King opened his eyes. They glowed faintly, storm-colored but calmer now. He reached for her hand, and together they stood facing the curse. The creature lurched forward suddenly, testing them both, and Lyra felt her heart leap. She would not let fear control her. She pressed closer to the Wolf King, focusing all her energy, all her emotion into the connection they shared. "Now," he said, his voice strong, commanding yet gentle. "Feel it, control it, do not run." Lyra closed her eyes, breathing deeply, letting every tear, every sorrowful memory flow outward. She felt the curse's power brush against her, a dark tide threatening to pull her under, but she did not let it. She let the strength of their bond guide her, guiding the Wolf King, guiding the force before them into stillness. The wolf creature paused, and then, with a final, echoing howl that seemed almost mournful, it vanished into the shadows, leaving only the echo of its presence. Lyra sank to her knees, exhausted, trembling, but alive. The Wolf King knelt beside her, taking her hands in his. His storm-colored eyes were soft, filled with something that made her heart leap, gratitude, awe, and something more, something neither had spoken aloud yet. "You did it," he said quietly. "You calmed it. You faced the darkness and turned it into something we can bear together." Lyra's chest rose and fell as she caught her breath. I didn't know I could," she whispered. "I didn't know." "You were never meant to know," he replied, "until the time came. You have grown stronger than you realize, Lyra, stronger than I even imagined." For a long moment they sat in silence, hands intertwined, feeling the aftermath of the battle. The moonlight bathed them in silver, and the castle seemed to breathe again, as if it were relieved the danger had passed. Finally, the Wolf King rose, lifting Lyra gently to her feet. "You must understand something," he said, his voice low, intimate. "This does not end tonight. The curse, it may return. The kingdom, there are those who will never accept you, but what matters is that we have faced it together. And together we are stronger than anything that comes for us." Lyra nodded, feeling the truth of his words. "I will not leave you," she said softly. "Not now, not ever." He looked at her, a faint, almost imperceptible smile on his lips. "Then we face the world as one. And perhaps, one day, the kingdom will see what I see in you." Outside, the wind had calmed. The forest beyond the castle whispered quietly, as if acknowledging their victory. Shadows lingered in the corners, but none dared move closer. Lyra felt a strange sense of peace, tempered by the knowledge that danger still existed. She was no longer just the quiet girl in the corner. She had become a part of the Wolf King's life, his strength, and the magic that tied them together. They walked back through the castle corridors, their steps echoing softly. Nobles peered from behind doors and windows, their eyes wide with curiosity and fear, but none dared challenge them. The Wolf King and Lyra were no longer merely ruler and subject. They were a force together, bound by courage, sorrow, and the unspoken understanding that had grown between them. Finally, they reached the tower room where their journey had begun. Lyra stood by the window once more, looking out over the forest and the castle below. She felt the wind in her hair, the weight of her tears, and the warmth of the Wolf King's hand in hers. "You saved us," he said quietly, standing behind her, his hands resting lightly on her shoulders. "And yet I feel as if this is only the beginning." Lyra nodded. "I know, but I am ready. We are ready." He leaned closer, his lips brushing against her hair in a gesture of quiet reverence, a promise that neither fear nor curse could break. "Then we will face what comes together," he whispered. "Always." For the first time, Lyra felt fully seen, fully understood, and fully strong. She was no longer just a girl crying in the corner. She was a part of something powerful, something ancient, and something beautiful. And in the shadows beyond the window, hidden eyes watched, silent and waiting. They would come, of course. They always did. But the bond between Lyra and the Wolf King had been forged in the fire of fear and sorrow, tempered by courage and trust. Whatever came next, they would meet it together. The first light of dawn touched the highest tower, bathing the castle in gold. Lyra and the Wolf King stood side by side, hands clasped, hearts beating in quiet rhythm. The curse had been faced, the night survived, and a new chapter had begun, not just for the kingdom but for the two of them. "You stopped the monster," he whispered, his voice low and intimate. "But can you forgive the man?" Lyra smiled faintly, a tear glinting in the sunlight. "I will try," she said softly, "and perhaps we will learn together." The Wolf King nodded, and together they watched the sunrise over the forest, the castle, and the kingdom. Their journey was far from over, but for the first time they knew they would face it not alone, but as one. And in the golden light of morning, hope stirred where once there had only been shadows.